Olsen takes the snap, and he fires towards the left corner of the end zone. It is caught as he in. Touchdown, Justin Bolus.
This season, Charlotte honors the 19 players who committed to the football program in its infancy and will now finish their careers as 49ers. But for one member of that inaugural class, the journey nearly ended before it began. Justin Bolus came to Charlotte from James Island Charter High School in Charleston, South Carolina, and along with the other 18 members of his senior class, took a chance on a program where football was still just an idea. But once he got to Charlotte, football had to be put on hold.
Yeah, so I got here as a true freshman, and like the rest of us, we were all redshirting our first year since it was our first season. We weren't playing any games, and after 3 weeks of conditioning, I was driving to Columbia, South Carolina, and I noticed my stomach had cramped up, and I began throwing up, but it wasn't easing the pain at all. So we checked into the hospital just to make sure nothing else was wrong, and we found out my intestines were twisted, and they did a surgery. Wasn't too big of a deal.
It was supposed to be a simple surgery, and Bolus was supposed to miss the fall and be back that winter. But things didn't go according to plan.
And we found out that during the surgery they nixed my intestine while they were operating, and that we figured that out about 5 days later. I'd gotten really sick, so they brought me back into the hospital and did an emergency surgery to patch that up. And I was in the hospital for another 2 weeks, got pneumonia in there, and by the end of it, I'd lost 50 pounds and withdrew from the school. Didn't know if I was going to play again, didn't know what was going to happen, so I was just stuck at home for that semester.
And I always tell everybody, that day that I went down to the hospital and he had tubes coming out of him everywhere, and to see his mom, and as a parent, you just really felt like you just didn't know if he was going to live. He's laying in that bed, and it's an amazing story.
Though at first Bolus was worried about getting back to his teammates, he admits his football dreams had to take a back seat to much more important issues.
I'd say at the beginning I was really worried about football, like, how am I going to get back on there? But as it got more serious and as things just started heading further south, it became less about football, and like I just wanted to be okay. I saw my mom worrying. She was at the hospital every single day. I could see it just tearing her apart, and it became more about life and, all right, just get out of the hospital, get healthy, and then you can worry about other things.
But Bolus did overcome his illness, and through intense work, he regained the weight he lost and returned to the 49ers in time for the team's inaugural game against Campbell. And when his number was called, Bolus answered in a big way.
Johnson will back up, Barnwell behind him. Send a man in motion, he'll throw it to the end zone, right side, and a touchdown. Justin Bolus, the H-back, scores the first offensive touchdown in 49ers football history, and Charlotte leads 13-0.
Now in his senior season at Charlotte, Bolus can reflect on how the illness impacted his life and time as a 49er.
I gotta say, it's the most humbling experience I've ever had, because as a high school senior and incoming freshman football player, you think you're invincible, you think you can't get hurt, you got the world at your hands, and then just like that, I was 50 pounds slimmer. I couldn't sit down without a pillow because I had so little muscle there that my butt couldn't support it. So to go from being the pinnacle of sports and then just looking at yourself in the mirror, you can't play football, you can't do anything, it's extremely humbling.
But the illness put a lot more than football in perspective for Bolus.
I'm not the average college student anymore, like you said, I have a wife, I have a child, so 100%, honestly, my mom was a true warrior during that time. My child gets sick and I'm freaking out, making sure my wife calls a doctor, so I can only imagine what it's like to see your child in the position that I was in, but she stuck it out and she really showed me something there.
Now as the team honors the inaugural members of the program as they play their final games at Charlotte, for at least one member of that first class, it's the perfect cap-off to a journey of recovery and growth.